In this video, I'll be sharing with you a tutorial on how to cut a stylish tube 6 pieces blouse. So if this is something you like, kindly hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. So let's dive right into today's video. So for this pattern, I've marked out the basic measurement that I need. So I marked the shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waist. Now for your blouse length, you can add either 7 to 10 inches after your waistline, or take any measurement of your choice. Now mark your shoulder divided by 2 and come down by 1 inch here. Place your tape and mark a neckline of 3 inches. Come down by this point, mark 3 inches. So we are just using this as a guide for this pattern, and connect. Now after you're done connecting, connect to that 1 inch shoulder slant. Next is to find your chest line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches, and I'll place my ruler to mark a straight line at that point. So after marking this, I'm just going to go ahead to place my tape and mark. Now I'll place my ruler, connect all the way up. After connecting, I'm going to place my tape and I'll mark, find the midpoint of my armhole. The chest line, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, then connect from here all the way up and also connect to this point. Now after I'm done connecting, the next step I'll take is to mark my dart. I'll start by marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2, which is 3.5, and I marked this all the way to the lower part of my pattern. Now place your ruler to draw a straight line at this point. Now divide your shoulder into 2 and mark. So from this point, you'll be connecting it to the bust point of your pattern. So I'll just go ahead to connect. So after I'm done connecting at this part, I'll now go ahead to insert my dart. I'll mark a dart intake of 1 inch on both sides of my pattern. So if you're plus size, you can use 1.5 inches. So I'm going to mark this all the way, starting from the bust, under bust, waist, and blouse length of my pattern. Now I'll just go ahead to connect all the way from the under bust to the waist, from the blouse length to the waist, and I will repeat this at the other side of my pattern. I'll connect from the under bust to the bust, and I'll connect back from the bust to the under bust at this point. Now after marking, I'll outline. Now you want to go ahead to determine where your neckline will start. I'm marking like 2 inches above my chest line, so you can go ahead to measure that before marking, right? I'll go ahead to place my ruler at that point and I'll draw out a line to serve as a guide. Then I'll mark my dart intake of 1 inch on both sides of this pattern, connect it to the bust at this point, and connect to the other side of my pattern. I'm not okay with what I have here, so I'll just blend it out with my marker this way. So after I'm done drafting here, it's now time to insert my body measurements. At the bust, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Now the dart I'll pick is this one here, and I'll mark. Then add ½ inch just for sewing allowance. Mark my under bust circumference divided by 4. Measure this dart intake and replace. Then add my sewing allowance. Going towards the waist, I'll mark my round waist measurement divided by 4. Measure this dart intake, replace it, then add ½ inch to it for my sewing allowance, right? The lower part, I'm going to go ahead to mark my hip circumference divided by 4, add ½ inch for stitching. Now I'll add extra 4 inches. So for this pattern, I'm just using 4 inches. To get a fuller effect, you can add additional 6 inches or 8 inches to your measurement. So because I'm drafting on a pattern paper and I might not make use of it, I'm just adding additional 4 inches to my measurements, right? So when drafting yours, go ahead to use more than this to get that actual fullness on the dress. Now I'll mark my bust dart, and to get your bust dart is the difference between your shoulder to waist in front and your shoulder to waist at the back. My shoulder to waist in front is 17, while my shoulder to waist at the back is 15 and a half. 17 minus 15 and a half will give you 1.5 inches. That is how I got my bust dart and connected to my nipple point. From the armhole, I came up by ½ inch. This is because I don't want the armhole area of my dress to be too revealing. If not, maintain your actual chest line, or if you don't want your armhole to be revealing, please go ahead to go up by ½ inch. So I'll go ahead to add like a style line to my pattern. Now if you don't want to snatch your waist with a dart, you can just add a style line to it, which I am doing. So I'll just go ahead to connect this all the way to the side and outline the rest of my pattern. After I'm done outlining my pattern, I'll now go ahead to cut this out. Then we are now going to give it the 6 pieces effect on the dress. Cutting my pattern, I'll blend out the darts and I will cut out. So at this point, if you have any question, please kindly go ahead to ask your question. Now I'll just go ahead to cut out my pattern. Then I'm going to add additional pattern paper in front, right? So this is what I have, and what I'll do now is to place additional pattern paper, and I'll be pinning it or using my tape to hold it down. Now if you notice, this additional pattern paper I added is starting from the waistline. So from the center part, I'll measure about 4 inches. Just like I said, if you're making this and you want it to be more fuller, please go ahead to use 6 to 8 inches. I'm just using this because I'm not actually making the pattern. So the more extension you add, the more fuller your pattern gets. So from here now, I'll extend this all the way to this 4 inches at this point. I'll place my ruler and I will connect. Also place and connect at the other side of my pattern. Then I'll cut this out. I'll also go ahead to trace out, to mark out this other side. Now what I'll do is to go up by 1.5 inches on this point, and I'll go ahead to connect, trying to create that curvy effect at this point, right? And after doing this, I'll go ahead to also repeat it on the other side. So after I was actually done cutting and I placed it together, it didn't really give me the curve I wanted. So I'll just go ahead to readjust it much later. I'll go ahead to mark the same 1.5 inches here, connect, and I'll also connect at this other side of my pattern this way. Now after doing that, I'll trace it out. I'll trace it out with my scissors, and this is what I have, and I'll also trace out the lower part. Now after cutting this side, I'll merge this up. In order to have that curve that I want, I'll just go ahead to connect from here, reconnect from here, and go up a little, because we have like a slight curve at each joining of the pattern, sorry. And I'll just go ahead to connect. Now I'll use my marker to outline. Now if you feel the curves I have here is not deep enough, because from the pattern the curves are not that much, it's actually the design on it that made it look as if it's quite deep. Now what I'll do is to repeat the same process on this other one. I'm just extending from the front. I've already added an extension by the side, and I'm just going to go ahead to merge this up and then try to create like that curve we have for this pattern on this side also, and I'll cut it out. After cutting this out, I will go ahead to draft out the back pattern. Now if you're not okay with the curves after merging up, you can always go ahead to alter it before transferring to your pattern. There's always room for adjustment before going ahead to cut this on your pattern, right? Now after cutting this out, let's go ahead to draft the back pattern. Now for the back pattern, I've gone ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2. I found the chest line, so there's no need to draw out the curve at the back. So I marked my shoulder to bust, shoulder to waist. So from that waist, add additional 7 to 10 inches. depending on the blouse length. But if you have a blouse length in mind that you want to use, go ahead to mark, right? So I'm just going to go ahead to start by marking my darts, which I'll mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I'll mark 3.5 inches, and I'll be extending this all the way to the lower part of my pattern. Now I'm going to place my ruler, and I'm going to connect from the bust to the waist and to the blouse length. Now I'll mark ½ inch on both sides, come down by 1 inch, go ahead to extend this all the way up and also extend at the other side. Now I'll be taking this to the lower part, and I'll also extend to this side. Now after I'm done marking this, I'll go ahead to insert my body measurement. Now at the bust, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Just add ½ inch for your sewing allowance. Here I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and add ½ inch for my sewing allowance. At the blouse length, I'm going to mark my hip circumference divided by 4 and add ½ inch, then add an extension of 4 inches to it. So just like I said, if you want yours to be a lot fuller than like what we have on the pattern, please go ahead to add extra 6 to 8 inches. Now after that, I'll go ahead to introduce a style line at the back of this dress. After I'm done marking this, I'll come down by ½ inch here, and I'll place my curve drill to connect all the way to the chest line. Just like I said, you can maintain your chest line, or you can go up by ½ inch at the chest line. I actually forgot to go up by ½ inch at the chest line at the front, at the back, sorry. So after that, I marked my lacing, which I used 1.5 inches. You can also decide to use 2 inches for the back. Now I'll just go ahead to cut out my pattern first. So after cutting this out, I'll now go ahead to slash it, add another pattern paper to it, and then add extensions to it to create the effect at the lower part of this dress. So if you have any question, please also go ahead to ask. Now I've gone ahead to place pattern paper on it, and I'm going to add an extension to it. I'll be adding 4 inches extension, and I'll also add by the side. So for this front pattern, to add an extension is optional, right? That is if you want to have a flay at this point, right? You just go ahead to add an extension towards the side this way. That means your eyelets will now have a flay effect by the side of your pattern. So I'll just go ahead and I will cut out this part, and then go ahead to extend this at both sides. Now for the last pattern, I'll just add an extension at the front. I'll go ahead to add an extension to the front of this pattern, that is to the front of the last pattern, and I'll mark, that is that 4 inches I marked. I'll now go ahead to trace out the excess. I'll also go ahead to trace out the excess I have on this part also, then trace out the other side. Now after cutting this out, just like I said, if you want your eyelets to have this flay effect at this side, it will be this way. If not, go ahead to cut it out so that your pattern will be flat at the back. Now I'll go up by 2 inches, then I'll connect and also create a curve here. I didn't get to see the back, but I'm trying to create the same curvy effect we have for both the front towards the back pattern. I'll also repeat the same here, connect, and also connect at the other side of my pattern. So I'll just go ahead and cut this out.